stream about Unreal. I've got an upgrade to my setup, which I'm happy to talk about, and I've got plans today to do some implementing of animations into gameplay, which is kind of like an excellent thing to talk about when you're talking about Unreal, to actually convert something into Unreal and take your raw material of animations and convert it into actual something you can play. I'm not really sure how far this is going to go and how far I'm going to be able to make it in the video, but I'm going to try and see if we can get it so that we can control the player, have them run around using the animations we did last week, and try to get them to feel like a gameplay so that we can connect it to our cinematic that we did earlier and have it do the two scenes together. Last week I realized that I did not see any messages coming in from YouTube, so I do apologize for any missed questions or anything. And so my plan today is to try and keep an eye on all these things, make sure that I don't miss any questions. So if you guys do have anything you wanted to talk about, and if anyone happens to bring up a question, I'm going to try my best to keep track of it. And also I'm going to talk about the green screen, which is what is going on behind me. Okay, so we got the green screen working. It came in the mail finally this week. Oh, and here's a little example of how it's being lit to the green screen. It's just back here. It's kind of exciting. It came on Monday, and I've been putting it together piece by piece, trying to get it to work properly. There's been a lot of learning on my end because I really don't know anything about green screens. I've never really used them in a game environment before because we don't usually use green screens. But it does have a very interesting, I don't know, finesse in order to get it right. And I can't guarantee you by any means that I've got it right, although I am impressed that today I'm getting some excellent contrast in my lighting right now. Like, for example, this is a perfect moment where things usually fall apart a bit because we've got super red light against you know, the green screen. Oh yeah, so it is falling apart a little bit on this side. So this is like an extreme scenario, trying to get my green screen to work here. But anyways, I had a lot of fun making it, setting it up. I'm probably going to do some more tweaks and improvements as I go along because I can still see some trim and some issues here and there. But the fact that my lighting is changing constantly means it's like the ultimate challenge for green screen. Look how bad it's going now. So yeah, definitely have some issues. Oh, also, I have to make sure I light it just perfectly so that you can get a consistent color. And currently I am not doing a very good job of that here. I only have one white light so in my entire house, and I was going to go out and buy one, but I never got around to it yet. So here I'm going to do a little bit of an example here since I'm brave, and I we'll see if I can do this here. I'm gonna turn off my green screen in a sec, and then we can see what it looks like without the background. Doing this just because it's fun, play around with it. I only get to really talk about it once. There we go. So this is what the regular thing. It's pretty smooth, pretty flat. It actually came in it was like I don't know if you've heard of these crazy pop-up tents. You just sort of uncoil it and it just goes and it turns into this big like oval shaped thing back here. I mean it's about this big, like it's about as big as my arm span, I would say. And it's very difficult to try and get it. Oh, thanks Chewy Stew for saying that I'm on fire. So I'm gonna try and make sure that the lighting is consistent as possible. It's not too bad. We're getting pretty good coverage here, but you know, anything I can do to make sure that that tonal range is extremely careful. You know, very minute differences. Anywho, I'm gonna put the green screen back on again because that's more fun. And we're gonna leave it on this one, I think, for today because it's got lots of fun light changes, and I don't know, because today's the day. So we'll get back to work now. I'm gonna switch over to our desktop, and we've got our project that we've been working on since last week, which has motion capture that we cleaned up and sent through. Well, we sent through Motion Builder. And we also did it through Unreal's retargeting system as well. But today, now that we've got the mocap cleaned up, we can put it in the game. And there's a lot to talk about when you're discussing how to put animations into the game. And it's definitely a long and complicated subject. Something we do cover in our course, to be honest. Trying to do it from scratch, in fact, so that the artists themselves can explore how to build these things on their own. And I think it's really important as an animator to have that comfort and that confidence that they are able to do this by themselves. They don't need a programmer or some smart designer person to implement these things. You can do it yourself nowadays, which is definitely different than it was I don't know, 5-10 years ago. And it does make it pretty exciting as an animator, because it's like now you have lots of interesting freedom to do things that you were just imagining before. Oh, here we go. We got our scene up and running here. It looks blocky and choppy, but that's only because I've only got it blocked out. I haven't finished the animation for the cinematic yet. So we're gonna do that one in the weeks ahead. But I kind of like the idea that it's still rough and blocked out. We haven't finalized it because we're still developing our idea, and we're gonna convert now to getting the game animations working and putting them in so that we get, let's see if we can find one here. We got some run cycles. Oh, that's a run cycle looking straight down, which I was supposed to have fixed at this point. That is a bit strange. I thought I would have had that one re-imported by now. So we got a walk cycle. Let's just do this run here. I believe the problem was, as we left off last week, right, I forgot to put in -90 and then re-import, which actually takes some time. I thought I did this before I closed the project. Yes, I have missed at least one of them. But all we need right now is the walk, the run, the jog, and then an idle. And we're going to work with that as our three main pieces. Sorry, I just realized that I do not have my Restream chat open, so I do not know if I'm missing conversation from anywhere else. All right. Seems like everything's okay here. And hey, we got Sean. Hey there. All right. Welcome. Thanks for speaking up and making sure that I because my chat is working. Appreciate that. Okay, so I just re-imported the run cycle here, and it's running now vertical, which is great. We got the walk cycle, which is vertical, and the jog. And we have a relaxed idle version 2. So they're all ready to roll. Hopefully. I don't know. We'll see. Like I said, I don't really know how far we're going to get for this particular week. We're going to try to do our best to see how far we can go. But there's a few steps involved before you can really get the character moving around properly. And it's not that much. And plus, I got 2 hours. So chances are I'm probably going to get to it. Make sure I save that. Hey, all right. Well, I'm glad to see you came back to see the streams. I appreciate having an audience. Makes all this effort worthwhile. Let me switch this to... Gotta get my source control up and running. Apparently it was disconnected there. And we're kind of at a fun point in our streams right now because we're doing gameplay implementation, and the great thing about these streams, I find, is that we can go anywhere with it. I mean, obviously with the restriction of time. Hey, we got another one from Facebook. Hello, Elizabeth. We can go anywhere with these projects. It just will take some time to implement it, I guess, is really the concern. All right. But I mean, I love trying new things. That's kind of my style anyway. So if you guys have cool ideas as I'm working along, feel free to throw them out there and we'll discuss them. Okay, so I guess we got to start somewhere. So we're going to start with, yeah, animation is starting to come together. It's still got a ways to go. But I like where it's at right now. I feel like, you know, we got some laser shooting and we got the posing, and it feels like the motion's there. So, you know, it's going to take some more polish and time and effort, but at least I think it reads fairly well. And I think it parlays into the next shot, which is going to be gameplay. I think that works fairly decently too. We can try to do some kind of fancy camera swing where we, you know, transition from one to the next, maybe a little more seamless, but I don't even know if we need to. I think we can just do a straight cut right to gameplay. Have this giant laser battle scene happening. It'll be like straight out of a Call of Duty scene or something. Okay. Okay, so I'm making, I guess like last week I did create very quickly a blend space. I wonder if I still have that here. Is this it? Yeah, I think I do. That was kind of me rushing through it, creating a little bit of a blend space. Blend spaces are easy to make. You just right click on the skeletal mesh and you go up to create and say blend space. So I don't need to do it again. I'm going to use this one, but I'm going to rename it. And it's always good to have a good naming convention, so BS for blend space. We're gonna call this idle run sequence. And of course, it's all on per4 source control, so it keeps asking me to check stuff out and all that stuff. When you say Call of Duty, I just think of that crazy scene in World War II where all the train cars are just flying around everywhere. You know what? To be honest, I don't have a lot of Call of Duty experience, so I don't even know what scene that is. But I'm imagining, knowing the standards of Call of Duty, that it's probably epic. Like it's probably like some sort of insanity going on. Which, you know, obviously, oh yeah, let's just make one of those. Is going to be ridiculous to shoot for. We will be shooting much lower than that, I would imagine. With one single developer. Yeah, especially for today. So we got the idle over here, and we got the run over here. So you get the two different sequences. And let's see, we want a walk, so I'm going to drag a walk in here. Actually, what was this final one? This was this was a jog. So I think if you hold, oh shoot, how do you move it? Been too long. I guess I could just delete it. So I need a so you start with a walk. Where is my walk? Am I not able to delete this now? Oh, I just hit delete. Sorry, I'm actually having to remember how to use this thing. They have changed it recently too, which is also makes me curious. I should turn on my key press, I just realized. Even though I find key press really annoying, it is kind of useful for you guys on your video to see that what I'm doing here, the little number things. Anyway, so we're going to start with walk. We're going to put it over here. There's actually not an equal number of pieces, so I'm going to have to change that to currently the grid divisions is 4. Oh wait, walk, jog, run. Yeah, so if I do 3, and I can do walk, jog, run, we should be able to get transition between all of them. Thankfully, these animations are already set up nicely so that they blend really well together. The only real trick about blending animations together is that they have to oh sorry, I missed your point about this is the main character there. The only problem is that and a lot of people do this, they make this mistake where they put the right foot forward for one animation and then they start with the left foot forward on the other animation. And if you try to blend those two together, you're going to get this person that looks like they're skipping as they transition. Like, for example, right in the middle between the two animations, it'll look like they're hopping along. And there's probably some other issues too that I'm forgetting about that come up when you're doing cycles, but I know that it's always good to test your stuff out before you finalize it, because you never know what you've done wrong. And then if you got to switch it up, left foot to right foot, you know, it is a bit of a hassle, and it's well worth doing carefully. So there's our blend space. So what do we do with the blend space? Actually, it goes in. We go to the animation blueprint. So up here we have the skeleton of the skeletal mesh, the mesh of the skeletal mesh, the animations, and the physics. There's also a node that could be in here that's your animation blueprint. And we don't have an animation blueprint at the moment, so I can create one pretty easily. Just go to the skeletal mesh node and create a anim blueprint, which is different than the character blueprint, which is another thing we got to do. So I guess we should do the name. What am I writing physics assets for? Just need to do AB. The physics assets should already be renamed. I better do these properly here. So I usually name the physics asset with the PA. I try to do it in the beginning so that A, it's symmetrical, but also, which is funny with this character, but also because it's easy to see it right away. You don't have to worry about it being cropped off at the end of the name. And I find a lot of people use this naming convention as well. So this is a skeletal mesh, so we're going to call it SKM. And this is the skeleton. Most of the time you don't really care that they're separate assets, but there are moments where it's like, oh, the skeleton, I can share that with multiple characters, and that optimizes things and saves stuff. So sometimes there's a really nice reason for having them as individual assets. Check in, not missing any messages as usual. Hopefully I am. Oh, I guess I'm getting Facebook and I'm getting Twitch, so yay for those. And yeah, Sean just posted another one. I'm just paranoid because last week I missed all the YouTube ones, so and they were really good questions, and I was really disappointed that I didn't see any of them. So now, and I feel like it's a little touchy. Sometimes Facebook messages will come in, or sorry, YouTube messages will come in. Did I say Facebook before? YouTube I missed. Sometimes YouTube messages will come in through the software that merges them all together, and sometimes it doesn't, so I gotta keep my eye on it. Anyway, that's my issue to worry about. Stop the gameplay. I didn't know I was playing this whole time. So, animation blueprint. Now we have it. If you double click on animation blueprint, it opens up another little group. So now we have skeleton, mesh, animation, blueprint, and physics. Physics is literally just a character with a physics asset. It's pretty straightforward, and then you can simulate them for fun. But what we want to do is worry about the animation blueprint, and what we're trying to do is get a way to use our blend space in our sequence so that basically the velocity of the character is moving is based on how far on that bar the blend space is playing. So it's pretty easy to do, to be honest. But what we need is, I mean, you can just throw a blend space in here if you want to. Like that particular idle run blend space, I can just toss it right in and it becomes the node. If I compile it, they'll be idling, and I can, like, I don't know, I guess you can't convert it. You can't do anything with it. But basically it's like, you can drive it directly, but you need to be able to pull the information of the speed. Which, I don't know, maybe this is the best way to do it for now. Keep it simple. I was gonna add a whole state machine thing, but maybe we'll just keep it simple. And so what we need to do is have an input for the blend space, so it changes the values. Currently it's called none, which it shouldn't really be called none. I should really name it something better than that. Let's do, we could call it speed. So that's the value of how fast it goes from 0 to 100. Basically refers to how far this is. And we'll come back to this in a sec because there's a couple things I got to do there. But anyway, blend space speed is now with the name. we're going to create a new variable inside of our animation blueprint. This is, I actually really enjoy this part, but this is very similar to programming. And if you do learn all this stuff and you go switch over to learn some programming languages, if you haven't already learned one before, you'll suddenly realize you already know a lot of things about it, and it'll make it a lot easier to transition. I am all about supporting people who are interested in programming, even if you're animators and artists. I mean, everybody's always like, oh, I'm an artist, I can't program. But I don't believe that. This is like, everybody can program. I mean, some people are really good at programming, and granted, they are really good at programming. But it's a lot more intuitive and less magical than you think once you get into it. It's just, you're just connecting dots is really all you're doing. But I actually really like blueprints. It's kind of nice. Node-based wiring is my style. Even though it's a bit slow and clumsy. So we need to come up with a speed variable. I'm going to throw this in. Since I plan to look into program later on, just usual Udemy courses, Udemy, I don't know how you pronounce that, courses. Yeah, right, like free online stuff. There's actually so much free stuff for doing programming. You can like get lots of good stuff out there. I should also pitch CG Spectrum, because why not? Have an Unreal C++ programming course that just opened up and started in earlier this year. And but that's C++. And when you're talking about C++, it's like under the hood programming for Unreal Engine. And if you're trying to make a game that is particularly off the beaten path of what is standard, and I'm not talking like a little bit off the beaten path, but like, you know, creating something completely in a different direction, then you're pretty much have to use the C++ solution, which requires learning, well, using this whole nother formula. I don't recommend it, basically, especially for artists. It's way too deep to get into right away. So if you ever happen to download a C++ project off the marketplace or something, I'd just be like, don't worry about it, because every time they do an Unreal update, that project now has to be recompiled for the next version. And recompiling stuff is very complicated, and you have to install like Visual Studio and install these packs, and then make sure you have it's just a whole bunch of stuff. And so what happens, or what I've seen in the past, is people would have C++ projects and they just kind of abandon them because they're just too complicated to keep updating. And meanwhile, Unreal is moving at such a fast pace that, you know, you get left in the dust if you're not up to the latest version right away. So I always say blueprints only, and you know, find blueprint projects. Most of them are blueprint projects, and just stick with them because they're really easy to use, and you can read them, which is sweet. Download a marketplace project and you just open it up and look at it, and you're like, whoa, all this stuff is right there for me to look at and learn from. You don't have to you know, it's not all compiled and secret and hidden behind fancy stuff. It's right there, just like what we're doing here. But anyway, to encourage you to program, I will return to my previous statement of you should do it, but learn Python. Yeah, there you go. They keep saying Python and Java is the way to go. That's right. I say the same thing. Python is basically the language I spent most of my hours on. I'm just learning JavaScript about 6 months ago to do some Slack scripting stuff, and that's been really interesting and quite a positive experience because it's actually very similar to Python, but also very useful in other ways. So, but Python, especially if you're in the industry, it has tons of uses. Every software has a Python avenue. It's by far the most versatile language in the entertainment industry, and it just keeps coming in handy for me all the time. And there's actually a really nice Python integration in Unreal as well that I have not really utilized yet. But for example, if you wanted to create a script that automated a whole bunch of setup, something that would take you a long time to kind of repeatedly do the same thing over and over again, you can make a script for it, and it'll just boom, create it all for you. And that can be really appropriate when you're doing facial rigging, where you have, 27 bones or joints or whatever per face rig, and each one of them needs to be set up in a certain way. And maybe you'll do it once, but then all of a sudden it's like, oh, let's do a little tweak and optimization. Now you have to do it all over again, and you do it all over again and over again. It's a perfect situation for a script where, if you can automate the setup process, then you just make the tweak once and then just run the script again, and it repopulates all the other joints and morph targets or whatever it is that you're doing. So lots of cases to use Python, and you can definitely use that as a bragging right when you're doing an interview for a studio or something, because they'll be really happy to see that you have any kind of scripting experience. It just shows that you're useful in many different directions. All right, I'm gonna drag the speed variable in. took me about 10 minutes to do that. All right, and the speed goes to the speed. So this is just an empty variable. Nothing's happening with it yet. Sean says, "That's true. I recognize that Python and Java can help do things you otherwise wouldn't think it would. Also, an extra skill comes in handy." Yes. They mentioned Ruby, and they keep saying it's difficult and obsolete. But a small part of me, for whatever reason, thinks I should look into it. Don't know. Maybe it's something in me that likes difficult things. That's a good attribute, but maybe a bad one too. I don't know. I have to think about that. I don't know anything about Ruby, so there you go. I know that it's a language. I know it's very popular, but I don't. You agree it's bad. But I don't know where the advantage would be. I think is the important part. I have not run across anything that required Ruby yet that I couldn't also do in another language. So yeah, I feel like you're solving a problem in a world that I don't recognize in that sense. So my vote would be don't worry about it. I would say go back to Python or JavaScript. I would say if you're interested in the industry, games industry or film industry, your definitely best bet is to focus with Python, because you got Maya, Motion Builder. I think they have one for 3D Max. I don't even know for sure, but I bet you there's something in Blender for it. It pretty much anything. And not only that, but when you learn one language, you're learning stuff for all languages. Even when you're doing this blueprint stuff, it's like you're learning things that you can use when you're learning other languages. It's just it's all the same formula. So here's my speed variable. I haven't done anything with it yet still. It's hooked up to my blend space. So when it does do stuff, it's going to change this blend space, and that's going to change the output result. I should be able to change this somehow, but oh, maybe here. Anything? No. Also, apologies for the grammar errors. I swear to God, this all-nighter is kidding. All-nighter, oh my goodness. Well, if you can make it to the end of my stream, I'll be very impressed and happy. I don't not to make you struggle any more than you need to. And I have not done an all-nighter in so long. Like, I don't think my body wants to do that anymore. Like, no more all-nighters. We're done with that. Alright, I'm going to move back to event graph, and we're going to switch this over. So we're going to get the speed variable back in here, and we got to set it. Actually, I guess we should change that. We want to set it to something that's going to be interesting. Plan 2. I got an animation to finish. Ah, yes. Well, then that's a different argument, isn't it? You got work to do. Hopefully I'm not pulling you away from getting work done. I do find I can listen and animate at the same time. However, I cannot type and animate at the same time. But I do appreciate your conversation, so I don't want to discourage you. Alright. So what I gotta do to set the speed is get the velocity of the character, and here's our pawn character. So that is our character. We have to, I don't think we can just say get velocity. Oh, we can, so never mind. That was easy. And so the velocity is a 3-value number. That's why it's yellow. It's got 3 values. Now I want to turn it into a single value. So you call it length, get vector length, which is a math term to be able to find the offset in any of the directions and how much offset it is into a single value, and that can be your speed. So whether you're going left, right, center, or whatever, you'll still get a speed value that is usable. And of course, the last thing I did here was do a little chain here to make sure that the animation update is triggering this. So animation blueprint update is on a different pace than with it's hard to explain. I haven't got to it yet, but character blueprints is using a different type of tick than animation blueprints. This is actually based on how fast the animations update rather than how fast the computer is processing calculations. So it's a different pace. Anyways, it's good enough for what we need. So speed is going to manipulate, and that is going to manipulate our blend space, and that is going to be our output to our character. I might be able to change this. Let's try changing our speed. What do I do? Edit preview. I guess I can't change that because it is telling me the character is not moving, so I can't just override that yet. Anyways, it doesn't matter. The biggest problem right now, because we haven't really done anything yet, even if we play the game and our character's somewhere, we still need to be able to control the character, and I think that's going to be a big discussion. So we're going to move over to that one. Oh, hey Gavin. That's the best explanation I've heard of vector length in years of doing stuff. Wow, that's excellent. I am very happy to hear that I was able to get that across. I must admit, vector length is not a simple concept to understand at first. Okay, so we're gonna make a character blueprint, which is different than a character animation blueprint. And so we need to make one in order to control our character. So I think I just make a blueprint class, and I'm gonna say I want to make it into a character blueprint. And that's going to start the process where I have a collision object that will be our character. And then we have lots of event options and actions and things that we can do with our character. So this is really going to be the object that is going to run around in the world. I think the reason why I wanted to pick character blueprint is because it's got character movement as one of the components already added to it. And this is the logic that is been written by Epic to handle all the, what it says right there, associated with the character, to make them move around like a character you would expect. So there's a lot of already pre-created stuff in there that is saves us from having to do a ton of blueprint wiring and stuff. It's pretty much a all-in-one package here, and you can see over here in the settings for it, plenty of stuff in here to work with and play with. So we'll definitely be taking advantage of that. And usually this is more than sufficient, unless you're really getting into very unique character movement styles. Then maybe you have to make your own type of pawn and sort of wire it together on your own. But especially in our case, it definitely makes sense to take advantage of that. So this blueprint, I should probably rename it so that I know what it's called here. And this is just going to be BP Symmetro character. And all right, so here we are. Now there's a mesh object inside of here that is empty, so that's going to be where our skeletal mesh is going to go. Throw them in there, and then sure enough, our character shows up. So we're putting it together, and then we just drag this down so that they fit inside the collision object. You can't really change the collision object itself, like its positioning. It's always got to be in the origin. And the blue arrow points to the direction that the player defaults forward to. So for whatever reason, everything from Maya always ends up coming in on the wrong axis. And I'm not really sure why that always is, but it needs to be down the X. And that's always kind of how it has been in the past. And for some reason, Maybe it's just the way it imports it from Maya. It always seems to rotate it in the wrong direction. So the feet I am noticing are just at the bottom there. I've got all these other weird things that follow the character. I've got to probably figure out how to clear that out. You're probably going to be following us everywhere we run in the game. And we just make sure our character sits in the middle, because this is going to be that cylinder, or capsule I should say, represents the collisions that they have. And you can change the size of the collision, and the capsule I mean. You just select the capsule component and change some of the half height distances. And for some reason my Steam just opened up. Don't know how that happened. Alright, glad it didn't destroy my stream or anything. Let me just double check that. Everything seems to be okay. Yep, we're good. Did I hit a hotkey or something? That was weird. Oh, while I'm doing this, let's see if there's anything I'm missing here. No chats I'm missing. Nope, not anyway. Alright, we're good. The character is pointing in the right direction, it's the right size. I'm really taking my time here just explaining it, also trying to remember all the steps that I need to do here. And you put the mesh in, but you also want to make sure you put the animation blueprint in as well. So currently it's set to use animation blueprint, but it's set to none. And we just created this one, so we'll throw that in there. And hey, look, it already throws in the idle animation, which is great. That means we've got it hooked up properly. And once we add some speed to it, then the character will start running as well. So that's pretty much ready to go, I think, without doing any settings or tweaks at all yet. Lots of things I could be doing, but I'm not going to try and do it out of order here. Oh, wait, I gotta go back. So the next step we gotta do is add some controls for the character. So we're gonna go back to, we'll open up the full blueprint. And this is the part I was not looking forward to. So we have to add a few inputs. So we'll start with the inputs. And here. I forget where to go here all of a sudden. Project settings. Project settings input is in here. This is a very useful place to come often if you're trying to, realize that any keystroke you do for your game is going to be put through these bindings. And you can do it other ways, but this is kind of a nice system because keeps it all organized and doesn't get stuck in like a particular blueprint somewhere. It's a universal binding for the entire project. There's action mappings, which is not what I want to do. Those are like button clicks, and then there's axis mappings, which is more like mouse movements and stuff. So we're going to do look up as our very first random input. And we're going to use our mouse is on the mouse Y. And we'll do the other one too. So we'll do look right. Just picking one direction, and then the opposite direction will be the negative of that. So X. And whether this is +1 or -1 would be the difference between it looking up or looking down, like inverting your vertical. And so I'm going to stop there because I want to make sure that we do this one step at a time for my own sanity. And then once you create those, put those bindings in, you can call them right away. So look up, look right are now there. And these values are going to be based on my mouse movements as the game plays. So what are we going to do with it? Well, we have to control something that makes the character look around. It's interesting that I've decided to do this rather than make the character move. But anyway, we'll start here. So what I need to do is create a camera, and I need to create a spring arm for the camera. So I'm going to add a camera. Am I going to add a camera? Let me do a search for a camera. There it is. Cine camera is from Sequencer. It's actually one of the newer camera types. It's quite a lot more, I don't know, it's got all these features which you probably don't care about. So we're just going to do regular camera. And then we want to create a spring arm. And the spring arm is a bit of a strange name for a feature, but it really is like the, I don't know, you got a selfie stick and you got that stick, right? It's the stick of your selfie stick. And it has to be on the root. So camera goes to spring arm. And so we'll jump back. There's our red line is our spring arm, and then the camera is on the end of it. Seems to have already put it in a place that makes sense of what's going on. You can change the length of the spring arm, and you can change the socket offset. Here we go. So it's higher. We can change the position of it so it's a little higher. And we can change the rotation of the camera down a little bit. Not that one though. Oh yeah, so -5, maybe -10. So the idea is that the spring arm, when you move the mouse, it just pivots around on that spring arm, and the camera is going to have this nice circular pivot that goes all the way around, and it makes it look like a typical third-person gameplay. If you wanted to do first-person game, you would just, you know, stick the camera right where the head of the character is, and you probably don't even need a spring arm, and you would just rotate the camera, I guess, or maybe the whole character. No, I guess it would be the character. If you open up some of the project templates, you can see all these setups. There's one for a project template for first-person shooter, first and third-person shooter, and you'll see with the first-person shooter, they even get rid of the whole body. All they have is the hands and the arms. That's the only thing that you actually see in your camera anyways. And now we don't have to worry about like meshes intersecting through the camera. So okay, so here we go. We're gonna do I think we need the spring arm in here. And we're gonna say set rotation, set relative rotation. And it's going to, I'm so not gonna get this right on the first try. I may have to pull up my references, because I'm just looking at this going, whoa, what do I gotta do again? There's a huge step in here that I forgot what it is. Usually what you would do is you would steal it from a template project. Which maybe I should do just for the sake of everyone's seeing how I'm magically pulling up information that makes no sense. How am I going to do this? Let's do... There's a particular node that I need, I believe, that is going to allow me to convert the value out into... Or maybe I'm just taking the speed of it and just multiplying it by the... Anyways, hold on a sec. We're gonna go back to the Epic Games. We're gonna launch a new engine, and it's gonna open up the intro window, which allows you to pick what type of project you want to open up. And so we're gonna pick a new games project. Here's the first-person shooter game and the third-person shooter game. And there's a bunch of other cool ones that they keep adding to it, so lots of good stuff in here to start with. And so we're going to open up, make sure it's a blueprint, not a C++. That's what I was talking about earlier. Maximum quality, doesn't matter. Ray tracing, no starter content. I got to make this into some folder that is temporary here. put it in here. This part you only ever have to do once, and so I never remember it because I never have to go back to it once you put it in. All right, here's our template project. So same story, blueprints, character blueprint. Inside of here, under the event graph, here's our wiring. This is what we're doing here. This is, yeah, lookup rate. This is what we want. It's pulling in the axis value. That's not even what I expected to see. So we're multiplying by world delta seconds. This is what I wanted to see. Add controller pitch input. So that was the node I didn't expect. It was on the wrong track over here. Add controller pitch input, and then there's probably one for yaw as well. So pitch is your look up, is your look right, and the value that you get is just, I guess, going to be a simple, basically what the axis input is, except for you need to do a fancy multiplication, which is using the, so this is, we're going to discuss about ticks in the speed of, okay, so when a game is playing, you get your frames per second, and then in those frames per second are little ticks that are happening. And these are like, it's got a whole bunch of things it's got to do to calculate before the frame is drawn. So there's like a whole operation of stuff that happens, and then the frame gets drawn, and that's your frames per second speed. So in these ticks, we're getting lots of opportunity to do refreshes and updates and all sorts of things. And so when you look at, like, you know, not event begin play, that only triggers once, but event tick, you're getting this happening over and over and over and over again, many more times than you realize. And so you can't just rely on the value you're inputting to be consistent between computers, because your ticks are going to be different based on which computer is processing what. So you can't just use it as a mathematical calculation directly. You need to kind of have some sort of relative base that you're going to rely on that makes sure that the number that you get is going to be the same value regardless of what computer you're running on. It's a pretty crazy concept, and it only seems appropriate in certain scenarios. In this case, it is appropriate. So what we want to do is get oh goodness, what was it just called? I just saw it. No, I forget what it's called. Still can't see it. Oh yeah, world delta seconds. I was thinking it was called base, which I don't know where I got that from. World delta seconds. So this gives you a standardized seconds number that's relative to the speed of your ticks as they're happening at the current time. So you get this really tiny number, which would give you like a fraction of what your calculation would have been if it were a second. So we're going to do the multiplication of the value that we're getting with the delta seconds. So we only get a tiny fraction of the actual axis value that we're using, and that's relative. That should end up being an equivalent value that you'd want per second. And so that goes into our output. Kind of bizarro, not going to lie, but it's important to realize this because otherwise you'll get crazy speeds, and then all of a sudden you're like, well, on a slower computer you'll get a different speed and you can't guarantee anything. So we'll do the same thing over here and get this to be here, and we're going to see if this actually works before we move on. Save and oh, I haven't got anything set up yet. It's one thing after the next here. All right, we hit play, and all we're going to get is our cinematic. See, that's interesting. So ticks are responsible for the consistency of frames. Ticks are responsible. Well, the world delta seconds is responsible for recorrecting you to the speed of a tick. The ticks are an arbitrary, constantly changing time, just based on how fast your computer's calculating. So there's no guarantee how fast the tick is going to be. It's just the time that it takes to process. But this is going to give you the ratio to be able to convert it back to consistent time-based interval. I think I just said that. Yeah, right. It's awesome. It's super simple. There's nothing to it. It's actually kind of cool because when you start to realize how much your computer does in behind the scene of what you get 160 frames a second, and meanwhile there's also all this like micro stuff that's happening in between those things. You're just like, wow, that is really fast. It's crazy. And I'm not even an engine programmer, so I mean, they would be fully able to appreciate how impressive computers can handle all this craziness. All right, what I need is a starting point. So when I play this game, oh, what's this? Can't play an editor while performing edit capsule operation. Wow, edit capsule operation. What does that mean? I've never seen it say that before. What did that mean? And why is there a character in my scene? That is a bit strange. Let me open up my cinematic here. And we'll jump to our location in the world, just so that I don't have to find it. And what we need is a player start. So I'm going to throw a player start in over here. And that's hopefully where the player just begins when we hit, well, I don't know. We're going to hit play. This is a weird one. Gotta love it when you get weird errors like that. Oh, you know what I haven't done is made a gameplay mode. Gameplay node. Alright, so this is good though. You gotta do it like this. That way you find out all the things that you need and how important they are. So we're gonna create a is it a blueprint? Gameplay? Yeah, gameplay mode, game mode base. Pretty sure that's right anyways. Maybe I'm wrong, but we'll see. We'll just call, I don't know what our game's called. Desert Run. Is this the right one? Yeah, okay, so here we go. So there's our game mode. We have to make sure our player is inside of there. So controller, no, sorry. Pawn class is our character blueprint that we just created. And I think that's about it. So you make sure that was in there. And then we need to make sure that this is actively working, which you could do in the world settings and just throw it in here. There it is. It just added. But I'm not going to try to do the override. I'm going to do it the proper way, where you do it inside of the project settings. And that way it always gets picked up. Character bombing? Is that the name of the project that you're talking about? That's funny. Not seen. Okay, we got that. Game mode base. So we're going to switch the game mode base to game mode Desert Run, which I guess could be also character bombing, which really encourages some quality VFX. And that should be at least the game mode that plays when we get back to gameplay mode. So I don't know, we'll see if I can save this or if I can play the level. We gotta get into the hardcore extreme VFX. There we go, it worked this time. I guess I just had to save my level. So we go through this sequencer and then we'll see what happens afterwards. Hey, look, we actually went back to the gameplay. That worked out great. So here's our character. You can actually see my mouse is influencing the movement side to side anyways. Now there's a lot of settings here that we get to play with in order to make this work. So first of all, this one is definitely coming in very tiny. Let me just double check the template, see what that was. They had another thing that was set up in here. Curious to see if that was base turn rate. Okay, so base turn rate is a value of 45. So they're just multiplying by a value of 45. We could do that too, but you can also add another pin and say 45. I don't know if the order is going to make a huge difference or not. I don't see why it would if it's multiplication, but I could be wrong. Also, we're probably going to want to disable this sequence so that we can actually see what we're doing. Here we go. Now I can turn a lot faster. I can't turn up and down, and that's due to a different setting that you can find inside of the character blueprint. Didn't need the spring arm after all. But yeah, cinematic first. We're going to go to the blueprints, and we're just going to temporarily disable it. So open level blueprint. And here it is. Create level sequence has the checkbox for autoplay. I can just unhook that for now. And now when we play, we get right away into the game mode. All right. BP character is now okay. So what we're gonna do is inside of the character movement, or maybe it's actually inside of the spring arm. This is always great. Every time I do a class and we're talking about this, it's always like, so which random checkbox do we need to switch? That's a really good question. Let's see how many options we have here. So we're gonna go to BP character. This is basically the blueprint, character blueprint. There is an important checkbox here for yaw, which is being use controller rotation yaw. I think I have to turn that off. I'm gonna try it. No, that was actually supposed to be on. Now I can't do anything. So let's do pitch. There we go. Now we get both. So that was it. So when I move the mouse down, the character looks up. So like airplane flying, which I think everybody complains about. Nobody usually uses navigation in that way. So you could do it through, like, it's the look up, right? So you could say multiply it by, you know, negative 45, I guess would technically flip the value to a negative. But I guess a good way to do it, I mean, there's lots of ways to do it. You could multiply it by -1 and then have that as like a switch that you could do in a menu interface or something. But I'm just going to go back to input. And mouse Y, we're going to make it -1. So now, up goes up, down goes down. And we can look around. And the character is following the direction of the mouse, which is something, again, is a setting that we have set in the character. I don't know, it might be the spring arm. Use pawn controller rotation. Pawn controller rotation? No, that has no difference. Anyway, there's a whole bunch of different, oh, maybe it's these ones too, I don't know. There's a whole bunch of different checkboxes that do different things. So if you wanted to have the character stay straight and you rotate around the character, that's a setting. Maybe it's when we do this. Try this. Oh, now the character, yeah, especially the pitch. That's awesome. Nope, that's not it. Shoot. What else could it be? Character movement. Use orient rotation to movement. Turn that on. No. Oh wow, the character is like totally sticking to the camera there. If I had that off. Oh, they are there. They're also doing that. Oh boy. Alright, we got some stuff to fix here. Use controller desired rotation. Nope. Spring arm. Use pawn controller rotation. I almost wonder if that's important. Could also just cheat and use the template again. Try and steal the idea. Because obviously I've got something that's not quite right. I shouldn't be rotating the character when I rotate, so something isn't quite perfect. Effect. Generation. Alright, time to cheat. Here's the template version. Let's see what we got here. We got that turned off. Okay, so these are off. And these are on. You can see why I get confused. Spring arm. These are on. What does that leave us at? Okay, so the character's not following anymore. Oh, there we go. That is it. So now we can rotate around the character. So yeah, there's a lot of different variations for how to do the settings. It by no means is easy to remember them. And I often, in a lot of my classes, sit there just sitting here trying to figure out what it is that needed to be switched. Anyway, so that's, I kind of like this mode for now, because you can look around the character and see things, see how the animations are going. So the next thing we got to do is get the body part moving. Let's make sure I have the right blueprint open here. Open this one up. Okay. So we're going to add some more inputs. Input. Axis mapping, so this is going to be move right, and I'm just going to use the keyboard D. And then I guess I gotta do all of them, don't I? Is that correct? Move right, move left. Is A. Move forward, of course, is W. I'm always surprised the number of students that don't know how to do QWERTY key movements. And I was like, wow, I just thought everybody knew how to do that. Like, because when you use Unreal, you're like the editor, I mean, there's a lot of, it's just standard that, like, you know, you're moving forward, backwards, you're using these keys. And I've had quite a few students who go like, what? How do I move my character around? What do I gotta do here? And they have to learn how to position their hands in the typical FPS shooter mode here, which is like, yeah, that's how I've done it all my life. I don't know what you're talking about. EAWS. So let's see, hopefully I'm doing this right. And so we're gonna have lots of controller inputs again. Let me, you got pretty Unreal Gods to move your character, that's how. Yeah, you're right. A little bit of that's happening right now. Let me jump over to the template and make sure we're not wasting everyone's time as I'm setting this up. We're not just about to head off in a weird direction here. Turn, look up, mouse input, gamepad, resets, move forward, move right, axis. That would be for controllers though, I would assume. I'm a little bit unsure what I'm doing here. Oh, I know what I'm doing. I'm supposed to do positive with one key, negative with another key. That's why it's not looking quite right in my head. I'll show you because they'll probably have it here. Turn, look up, turn right, move forward. So yeah, you have W +1, S is -1. And look, they put all these other ones in here too. Up, down, gamepads, all these things are all inside there. That way you just have a move forward. Okay, so we'll jump back to our project, go back to project settings, go back to input, and we're just going to say move forward. We don't need this. We're just going to create another value that's going to be the opposite. And I'm not going to bother doing like keyboard commands and stuff. I mean joystick commands. And move left. Oh, actually, I'm going to do move right. Sorry, move right, and then we'll add another one for move left, which again is a -1 value. There we go. And one more question. What is this called? Add movement input. Oh yeah, right. Very good. It's kind of confusing because there's a lot of them. There's add movement input, add controller pitch input, there's like world rotation, all this other stuff. There's like a lot of different ways to input stuff in. So it's hard to remember all these nodes. I definitely appreciate if the students, when they're like, yeah, I watch the videos, but I don't understand how I would ever do it by myself. And that makes sense. It's quite complicated. But it's not really the point. We're not trying to make it so that you memorize how to do it. It's more about understanding that where you're heading so that you can get it done. Luckily, for anyone who's watching, you're getting a bit of a bonus here because there is a bit of overlap here on the actual course. But it's the only way to get this done. Movement inputs, that's what I'm looking for. Add movement inputs. So we have to say what axis we're going to do. So we can grab our thing. Move forward axis events, and then we have move right axis events. Add movement inputs is going to be either the it's really helpful to have this project template beside me because it saves me from having to like completely guess everything. Oh yeah, so this is a little different here because we have to get a bunch of stuff. We have to get the controller rotation, so in other words, the position the character is currently in. So when the person pushes W to go forward, they're going to be going forward relative to the character's rotation, not so much just in our, you know, the standard world grid positioning. So we got to go through all this process of like, what direction is the character in? And then let's find out what direction that is and put that into our world direction so that we move in that direction of that information. And again, this is something that you only do once. That's why I've totally forgotten how to do it. And even this break rotator, make rotator, that's just basically saying we only want the z-axis. We don't want to input anything from the x and y, which is just a safety thing. Get right vector and get forward vector. Those are cool nodes though. Those are kind of the fancy things that we got to do here. So we start off with get controller rotation. And I guess we can just break rotator here, or we can get the make rotator. Definitely don't want it to go from there to there. And now we have another cleaned up rotation. We're going to do get right vector for our turn right, and get forward vector for our travel forward. And that will get triggered whenever the input gets detected, and we're going to just throw in the value that gets put in, which I'm not, just the same value. There's nothing crazy going on here. It's just like go. And I think the reason why that isn't all being controlled fancy with get world seconds and stuff is because the input is being controlled through the character movement to determine how fast the character moves via all kinds of internal things. So you have your max acceleration and your walking speed, wherever that is, max walk speed and all these things. So this is all being heavily controlled internally. And so all we really got to say is, yo, we're trying to move you forward, and this is going to determine whether or not it actually goes forward and at what speed it goes forward. So we don't need to do any fancy stuff. But with the mouse control, we're like, you know, I want to rotate my mouse right. And then if you've got a super crazy computer, you're going to be zipping around the screen really fast. And if you've got a really slow computer, it would move really slowly. So this is neutralizing it. So regardless of the speed of your computer, you're still rotating at a constant speed. Apparently 45 is your magic number. I don't know where that comes from. But it does feel pretty good when I play it. All right, let's try it out. Let's see if our character does anything. Hey, look at that. We have a character that moves, and I can look around, and the character does not follow the direction that they're going, but the direction my camera aims is the direction that they run towards. So at least the logic of the input is working. We've just got one checkbox or something that isn't set for making sure the character is pointing the direction that we're traveling. So it's somewhere in here. Maybe the character movement, I hope, or maybe it's something else. Orient rotation to movement. Boom. So there's like, what is it, 3 checkboxes or 4 checkboxes that we have to set. There we go. Now we're getting a character movement that looks a little more believable. And so yeah, the problem with keyboard movement is it's very digital. You just have on, off, on, off. So you really start to see the obvious glitching of just the speed changes that happen there. And of course, we are also traveling with the gun below our feet, which is always fun. Like a surfboard or something down there. You can see because I changed the camera to be higher and the pivot to be over, I can kind of see over their head a lot easier, which is a nicer effect. Otherwise, I'd be kind of staring at the ground more, and character would be kind of in the way of the shot all the time. Treasure Island Surfer Dude. Nice. Yeah. We could totally have done a Surfer Dude character. But then it would have made all that running stuff unnecessary. Unless it's a special surfboard that has, like, a tread wheel on it. It's a special tread wheel surfboard. That's almost counterintuitive. It's like, well, why just not walk? You're on a special hoverboard surfboard that you have to walk in order to power it. what's the point? I don't know where I came up with that. That was just ridiculous. Should we fix the gun on the bottom of the feet, or should we fix the character's movement controls? Let's talk about the character's movement controls a little bit more first, before we get to the gun part. Still got plenty of time in this stream, so I'm not exactly in a rush to finish anything up yet. We'll just kind of casually move along. Character movement. All right, we got to vote. So inside of here, we have lots of different variables that you can play with, and it's kind of I don't know. For me, it's always a bit complicated. It takes me a long time to sort of sort out all the different elements. But ground friction, if you reduce that, could add to more like sliding, and by sliding might mean more like a run to stop kind of effect, which when you're talking about gameplay, it's like, okay, well, is that really what you want? Do you want the character to be taking a while to come to a stop? There's also braking friction, which I think I'm gonna knock these down by half at least. Max acceleration, gravity scale. Oh, you know what? Another thing we forgot to do. So, first of all, let's see if this does anything. Come and stop. Doesn't look like very much interesting going on stuff here. So, what's happening right now is the character's speed is, if I go to character movement, I see max walking speed. It's 600 units. And so 600 is where the character kind of caps out on their speed. And if we take a look at our animation blueprint and that speed variable that we created, we're only going to a maximum of 100. So we technically don't have a very well-matched value here. So this speed going into our blend space only goes up to a maximum of 100. So the speed is trying to get up to 600, but our blend space only goes up to 100. There's two ways to approach this: to like take the max walk speed of the character. You take the max walk speed of the character's movement and divide that by its current speed and find a percentage, and then use that percentage to figure out what the current speed is, so that you can work from a 0 to 100 value. Wow, I'm sure that was exciting to listen to. Or you could just type 600 here, and then you wouldn't have to. But like, the problem is, if you will change the speed of the max walk cycle, you have to know that you have to come back here and change the speed of the blend space as well. So it's not a great solution, but it works. Oh, and then there's another problem. So I moved it to 600. Oh no, they fixed that bug nowadays. So now it also works, so that it goes up to 600. Now you can see the value here is 600 for the run. The only reason why I thought there was a bug is because I'm looking at these dots and they're like being drawn way off the screen here. So that's there we go. Just have to recompile. Let's try it out. Let's see if that looks any better anyways. A little bit. Kind of comes to a stop a little bit more smoother. Good. All right. What else can we do to kind of get that stop to be a little better? Braking, deacceleration, walk. All right, we'll do 10, 24. There's something to do with these values that, oh yeah, there we go. That really changed it. Now I feel like it's a little bit slippery. Looks better though. But when you, I can't remember what I was gonna say. Oh yeah, so when you change those character movements, sometimes there's elements in there that are influencing each other. So, and it takes a while to get your head around, and I've completely forgotten how they work. But like your braking friction factor might be influencing your ground friction, or maybe the braking deacceleration, or these might have cross influences to each other, and it does get complicated, like the mass as well. I don't know what I don't know what units of measurement that is, but that would influence things as well. It sure doesn't feel like it though. So yeah, you can spend a lot of time tweaking these numbers out, trying to find out the best value. Sorry, there's a value I wanted to switch here. Max acceleration, let's do this to 1024 as well. A little bit of a slower ramp up. So there's like, when I was first started doing animation, oh yeah, there's a bit of a slower ramp up now for sure. At a game studio, and this is where I really learned that you've got to like let the gameplay be the real driving force of how games are made. And you know, aesthetically you want to make it look believable. That makes a big difference. But we made some sequences when we were R&Ding our first project that really had a lot of visual animation element to it, but didn't have a lot of interactivity. And in order for it to really sell properly, you had to let the animation play out its thing. And it kind of, like, from an animator it was kind of cool, but from a game player it was annoying enough that they decided to scrap the idea. But it was kind of a good lesson early on for me, because it taught me that, you know, just because it looks cool doesn't mean it's a selling idea. It has to be fun, and it has to not interfere, and you know, be able to be compatible with the design of what they're trying to achieve. And so it's more about trying to make something look cool within the constraints of the look that already is there. And it becomes more challenging, and it really explains why it takes so long to make a game. And it's something that you really don't appreciate when you play a game like Grand Theft Auto or something. You're like, oh, that looks really cool. You don't realize how many layers of complexity that is. Like, not even technically, but like in terms of aesthetically, and you know, the amount of tries they've attempted that probably were like, let's see if we can try this, and let's see if we can do this, and this takes forever. It says, I notice in a lot of games nowadays, even though I love the animation, the interactivity element of it gets pulled away sometimes. I love the animation, but the interactivity element gets pulled away sometimes. So you're saying that the animation is overdriving the interactivity? Yeah, I think that's what you're saying. That's interesting. So it's kind of like it's going too far, you think, for the aesthetics. And you have to remember that sometimes that these players will be doing this over and over and over and over again. So it's like, it might look cool the first 1 or 2 times, but then after that it's like, okay, I've seen it, just want to get through the game. For example, I noticed back then a simple click was all that was needed. Now there's animations for like drinking. Oh, with GTA, yeah. That's interesting too. I mean, if you are talking about Grand Theft Auto. Yeah, I suppose you kind of I need to drink faster. It's just taking too long, all these animations. But yeah, so like you did make a point, I think, with more like, you know, getting into a vehicle. Like, you could make this really fancy vehicle animation where they open the door, they get in, realistically close the door, turn on the car, get it going, and then drive away. But like, yeah, that looks realistic and believable, and that captures a really interesting aspect. But when you're getting into the car for like the 500th time, you're like, I don't care that the car has to turn on, just get me going, I want to drive. And that really hits home after, you know, after you've kind of experienced both sides of the argument. If you're doing a cinematic or whatever, and you're trying to build up atmosphere, and you're building up the character or whatever, that's a totally different story. And that's why cinematic department I find a little more interesting, because you know, then you really are thinking more about the animation quality and the animations, the subtlety inside of it. But then you watch game players and they're all like, "There's no skip button. Where's the skip button to the cinematic? I can't take this anymore." Which maybe that came off a little bitter, but I mean, like, that's just the reality. You just have gamers that are not interested in cinematics. Yep. I just remembered Battlefield series was one of them. Battlefield 3. Wow. You instantly get into the vehicle. Ah. But now, in the future titles, you gotta hit E, then climb, then open the hatch just to jump into the tank. Now, I wonder if that's a gameplay thing. Like, I wonder if that is because, you know, these are the sacrifices of jumping between vehicles, or this is an element of vulnerability that keeps you on the field so that you think twice about before you jump in the tank. That is a cool point, definitely. Wow, my green screen is really dying right now. Where you're definitely looking at balance points, and what's interesting is that caters to the animator's dream of being able to do the scene, but is it more fun? I mean, that's really the last question, right? You always got to find out if is it more fun, is it worth playing, and it doesn't really matter how you do it as long as it's fun to play. I might have to fix the character's gun now because I've run out of things to do. So off we go to sort out the skeletal export mesh. This is going to be exciting. Actually, maybe what I can do is open. Oh, you said, and Sean says, and you can get shot while jumping in. Ah, so there you go. You got annoying for me like 100th time. So I really feel like this is a gameplay thing. Like, they actually purposely did that because that is now, you can't just hop into tanks and start driving and run people over. You have to, like, there's a sacrifice element, a balancing point, an element of vulnerability that is purposely put in there to make sure it's more fair. I bet you people could really hack the game by hopping into a tank without even, like, what? Where did that guy come from? He just jumped into a tank. Oh, this is totally not what I want to do. That was my computers. I'm looking for my, it looks a lot like that icon. I'm looking for my perforce here. We're gonna go to source. And we're gonna find the animation character export. Got this is such a mess of files here. Anim rig, that looks pretty good. Might be what we're looking for here. The reason why it's a mess of files is because I want to put the textures all in the same folder, so I don't have to create a project, so that I have to, like, so the textures still work, but I don't have to, like, worry about changing the folder path and it all breaks. Which, if I set up a Maya project, I could probably avoid that, but I'm not a big fan of Maya projects. Alright, so this is the rig. Now I have to find the, oh, there was this thing that you could do. I think this was part of the problem, but you can select. Oh. Well, maybe you can just use this selection set. Nothing in the selection set. Whoops, I didn't mean to click on that. These static channels, FBX export. Man. No object selected. What, you need me to select it? Is this referenced in? No? Good. Oh man, this got more complicated all of a sudden. There is a backup solution I could do where I just grab the FBX that's already exported and just eradicate some of those meshes. That is going to change the hierarchy though. There's our render meshes. Wow, this got really boring, didn't it? Here I am stuck, trying to figure out where the rig is. And I can't do anything. I got the folder. I got facial rig. I just don't know why that's causing an error right now. I thought that was going to be my solution right here. Pretty sure that's how I did it last time, was I used that fancy button. Hey, I got support to keep going. All right, appreciate the support. Just have to get through it. Just gotta get through it. What's in here? What I can do is maybe cheat a little bit and go over here and find out what the skeleton looks like. Might be able to show me the hierarchy. Auto rig, Unity output skeleton root. Okay, that's what I'm looking for. I think I can. Thanks. Thanks, Kevin. This is great. Got a little moral support team behind me. So we got auto rig. Here it is. And then inside there we have, oh, it goes into do not adjust. That doesn't look good. Unity. What? How is it possible that this rig totally looks like it's missing stuff? Auto rig. That's why I think that export button was all the important part there, because if maybe it's rearranging stuff in order for it to work. What does it say again? Maybe I just need to figure this part out. No object. Let me just check the script editor over here. No object matches name deformation system, right? So like there is something missing here. That doesn't make any sense. Let me just close this and not save it. Make sure that that works. Oh. This versus this is two different files. It's the game ready one that I needed to open. This other one is not a game ready version of the rig, so I opened the wrong version. Hopefully that's all it was. There, auto rig. That looks better. Unity output meshes, yeah, and Unity output skeleton. All right, we're getting somewhere now. But this time, I want to export this and this, but minus these ones, the ones that are grayed out. And also, no, not that one. So I'm just gonna delete them. And we're gonna do try this FBX export. Didn't work again. Will never work. I don't even know why anymore. Doesn't matter. I think what we can do is just grab this and go File, Export, Selection, which is the way I usually do it, and Smoothing Groups. Well, we don't need animation. And we're going to put this into our source, characters, Symmetro. We could, in theory, put it on the same place as our previous one. Wait, what is the previous one? Hold on. Characterized, no, these are... Alright, I'm gonna make a new one. I don't know why I don't have one that already exists, but whatever. Maybe I deleted it as I cleaned it out. That's probably what happened. Okay, so Symmetro char export. Export selection. Skin deformation. Let's see if I can just re-import it. Wait, skeletal mesh, re-import base mesh. Apparently I named it the same thing, hopefully. No, I did not. What's that? So we are going to go to the settings for mesh and file path. And there is the character. Oh, that's the file. It was just named Symmetro character, not export. I put an export word at the end that didn't need to. We'll do that, and then we'll re-import it and see if it errors out or what happens here. It seems to be okay. Hey, look, the weapons disappeared. Wow, I can't believe this worked. All right, save. Close, maximize, play. All right, so now the only problem is we just have the one gun, which is fine because we're gonna put that in our hands. Let's do a submission of all my stuff right now because that's always a good idea. So we save our map. Time is it? Oh, we're at 39 minutes. To the or the 20 minutes to the hour, I guess I should say. So I'm going to do source control, submit to source control. We're going to say added first pass game what movement, character movement, and we're going to submit that. So that'll all go to the server, and then what we're going to do next is try to attach the gun to the hand, which is kind of cool. That'll be a fun thing to do. Those pluses are supposed to turn into other things. Okay, it's still loading. Oh, it's really working hard to submit it to a computer that's literally next to my computer right now. There we go. All ready now. Gun, that's what we're doing. So, character blueprint, that's where the gun is. We'll jump over to the viewport. This is a bit of a different scenario because the gun is already with the character mesh. Usually it's something I add separately, so we might just have to it might just be that the joint has to be moved into the hand through the animation, which means since we didn't do that through the retargeting, we would have to do a animation blend, which is kind of a cool but crazy thing to do right now. And also, what would we be? So either I have an animation where it's posed in the hand. I should probably do the whole hand animation. That way I have the fingers wrapped around the gun and stuff during the cycle, and I'll just basically blend the hand down so that the hand will have all the run cycle animation, but we'll just have the hand wrist down, which I used to have in my older teaching content. I think the one that Gavin went through, but I don't have it in the new one, so this is kind of an interesting direction to go in anyways. So what am I gonna do? I need to make a pose in Maya first. So we'll take this rig and we'll save it as an animation file. And we'll call it game ready underscore gun hold pose. And we need to make sure that the gun joint, which I guess hopefully just by moving this, we'll be moving the gun joint with it, is getting positioned relative to the hand. Oh, let's check for any custom attributes here that pins it to, here we go, pins to the right hand, so that we'll zero at these values. We should get right to the hand. Hey, look at that, very helpful. And now the fingers need to be closed, so we grab our finger controls. Which one is the finger controls? Here we go. I have to remember how this works again. Each individual joint is an attribute here, but I don't know if they have an entire full hand controller. I'm gonna say no. I feel like this was something I was looking for before as well. I didn't find it. We grab this. I grab all of them. Oh yeah, that's what I'm looking for. X, Y, Z. Okay, so Z is what I want. Is it really finicky? So we'll just do the, oh shoot. Oh no. We're just gonna do the fingers. Oh goodness, just give me the 3 fingers. Or 4 fingers, I mean. Alright, there we go. Now the index finger, maybe I went too far, so I pull that back. Middle finger. I guess I should have done it one at a time. Wow, tedious. But not that bad, I guess. Alright, it's worth doing, I guess, a fairly good job because it's going to be the same hand pose for all run cycles. So they are all going to use this pose. And if I made it into an animation, so I don't know how the animation would make any sense because how do you predict what the other animations are doing? But you could in theory do it into an animation and you'd be able to play that over and over again as well as a layer on top of the other one. But right now we're just going to do a single pose that's just going to sit on top of the previous ones. Or the run cycles. Alright, that's not too bad. Cool. Let's export the animation. Everything else is going to get ignored. I could pose it all I wanted to, but it's just all going to get stripped out when I do the blend, so it doesn't really matter. And it's easy to fix too if you ever need to, so. Alright, we just need the animation. Hopefully I can just grab that and go export selection. Make sure that I have the animation turned on. Bake animation, I don't know, we only need like 2 frames. And so we're calling it gun hold pose. And hopefully I've got it selected in a way that's going to be compatible. Wow, I sure hope so, because it's taking forever to process this. Alright, there we go. Go back to animations, import this new one. Gun hold pose. Make sure we pick the right skeleton for our character. Import, fingers crossed. Yes, looks good. Yay, the gun's in the right place. Excellent. Now we can move on to the next stage. Alright, so blueprints. The way that you do blends, hand blends, is within the anim graph. So basically this is the animation posing data streaming across to our final output pose. And what we're going to do is, this is the run cycle. It's coming in, and then we're going to override it with a blend. So the hand gets overwritten, and then we send it to our output. It's a lot like using Photoshop, but in sort of like this abstract animation thing. I don't remember if it's blend. I always get this part confused. There's like blend per bone, that's what it is. Per bone. Layered blend per bone. And so one of them is going to be the run cycle, and then what we're layering on into it is going to be the gun hold pose. And so that just goes right into here. And now we need to worry about, what's the blend weight? Well, if you're not holding onto the gun, you can say the blend weight should be 0, and then if you are, then it's 1. So you can still say, the character is holding the gun at this point, it's not holding the gun at that point. But we're not going to bother worrying about that, because at this point they'll always be holding the gun. And then you just output that to the final result, and it doesn't work. Come on. Oh, I know what we haven't done. So inside the layered blend pose, we haven't said what we want to blend it to yet. So in the layer setup of that node, you have to create an element, and that element has to be the bone name that you want to start blending from. If we go to the skeleton, we can kind of find out what the joint names are. And so we know we want the right arm wrist. This joint, we're going to blend from that joint down. So I'm going to say copy selected bone names. Go back to the blueprint. Paste it in here. And there's an option for, there's blend root motion based on root bone. I can't remember what that means. Something about orientations or something. And there's also blend depth, which is 0, but we want to do all the way to the end of the joint, so -1. Pretty sure that's how that's going to work. Or not, because it didn't work. Let's go back. Let's do, well, let's do 0. Let's do a test. No. Let's do 5. Actually, 0 should have worked. Oh, you know what? If I take a look at the hand, I bet you hand pose is there. It's the gun that's not in the right place. If I do 0, compile, still looks like it works fine. If I do -1, compile, oh, that doesn't work at all. So ignore my -1 theory. 0 is where it's at. Okay, and then what we got to do is take the gun bone and it's interesting because the gun bone is not part of the hierarchy, so that's why it's tricky. I don't even know where the gun joint is. I mean, it's part of the hierarchy, but it's not part of the hand hierarchy. So I need like that joint. Oh, look at the way they did this. It's kind of cool. I think each one is got a joint for its movement. Prop A output is what is standing there. That's what I want, is that joint name. UNL prop A output. UNA, this is J, or maybe it's J. Prop A output. Okay, that's it right there. I'm gonna do that one. And yeah, this is gonna be interesting to see how I do this, because I don't even know. Oh, maybe we can do another, well, that's what we'll do. Another branch. And we'll see if we can put that in there. And cross our fingers. Oh, something changed. I feel like 0 is probably your infinite depth. Bet you every time I do these other ideas. Wait a minute, wait a minute. What am I doing exactly? It's the joint. It goes to blend depth 20. Oh, hold on a sec. Let's do 0 and then turn this to off. Try that. No. Oh, that's for both of them though. So it's in the right location, like positionally, for the animation, but but I don't even want it to use positional data. So it's trying to pull all that information from here. So maybe instead of doing that, I should just like constrain it or something. I can do that in the blueprint. I'm gonna get rid of this one. Oh, I got rid of both of them. Sucks. Why wasn't it getting rid of one of them at a time? Alright, sorry if this is super boring. Oh geez, I only got 4 minutes. I'm gonna put the hand pose back in. And I got a theory on how this is gonna work, at least. That's good. Right wrist, copy selected bone names. Okay, no, not at all. That's good. I actually really appreciate those confirmations. I know that sounds dumb, but it's like, it's good. I'm glad to hear that you're actually paying attention and interested in what I'm doing. Gonna put that back in there. We should be able to get the finger pose back in. And we're just gonna leave it just that one thing, right? So the actual positioning of the gun, we're gonna go back, well, not back, but we're gonna go to event graph. Oh no, actually, we're gonna jump right over to the character blueprint, I think. And this is gonna be really new territory for me, because I don't know if this is something that you can do, where you can say, I want one joint of the character to connect to another joint. This may be the wrong approach. That's why I am kind of thinking that maybe I do need to be in the animation blueprint still, but there is constraints. I'll just show you what I'm doing, I guess. Where is this thing? Set constraint mode. Oh, find constraint bone. Is there like one that specifically says bone? Name. Constraint. Bone name. Anyway, there's these component constraints. I'm sure there is. I don't know why I'm not finding it right now. There's all these ones that there's even some of them that they've gone and made it into a legacy. Oh, this is not going well. Set constraint profile mesh for mesh. Alright, well, the confusing thing is it is part of the mesh already, so maybe I should bring the mesh in. And you notice I'm doing it in the construction script. I didn't really explain that, but this is all stuff that will happen before the character even gets loaded in the game. Rather than trying to do it on event begin play, it's just kind of happening. I've only got 1 minute left. I'm never going to get this accomplished in time. This might be a good spot to stop. But anyway, well, yeah, let me just... let me just try to finish my thought here. Yeah, okay, so there's two different ways to do it. I'll do some research offline, I guess. Figure out the solution, and we'll come back and do the other one. Because it's cool to see me problem solve, yeah. To see me sweat, you mean? But yeah, so what we're gonna try to do though is either you do it in the anim graph where you do like a blend, or somehow we're gonna want that bone joint to constrain to the hand joint, and they're all in the same hierarchy, which I've never actually done before, so I have a feeling there is a way to do it. It's just a special technique, and sweating assholing. And so I'll do some research online and figure out what it is, and we can find a solution. But it'd be cool, then you can just hook up the gun to your hand whenever you want to, and that will be part of the process we're going to use if we ever want to say, oh, let's switch weapons, or let's take the weapon out, or whatever, which I can see that happening down the road eventually. So anyway, I guess what I should do is switch out into camera mode, and if you guys have any ideas that you want me to pursue in the next week, I'm pretty sure next week what I'm going to do is just continue what I'm doing here and make sure it's all polished up. I'm probably gonna have too much time on my hands afterwards, so I will have to think of a secondary plan, which may be animating the cinematics some more, or what, you know, like, let me know. I definitely curious to explore some new ideas if we want to. Definitely got to get this gun working first. I guess if the character's shooting in the cinematic, we probably need to make sure the character's shooting in the game too. So maybe that's what we'll do. We'll do some gun shooting in the gameplay. That actually makes sense. I may have just thought of the idea right here on the spot. So anyway, we'll look at that maybe as our solution, or what to do next week. But feel free to let me know, and I'll wrap it up, and I'll see you guys next week. Take care. Thanks for everybody for showing up. Cheers.